You've seen it happen: messages left unseen, conversations that vanish without warning, connections that dissolve overnight. Studies suggest nearly 65% of people have been ghosted at least once in modern digital relationships. But here's what's unsettling: most people never ask why. They just label it as cruel, careless, or immature. But you're different, because a part of you doesn't just notice ghosting, it understands it. And maybe, uncomfortably, a part of you has done it too. You weren't always like this. There was a version of you who answered every message, who stayed even when conversations got awkward, who believed honesty was the same as safety. You used to think closure was something you owed people, like a final act of respect, and when things felt off, you didn't disappear, you explained, even if your voice shook while doing it. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. You started noticing how honesty didn't always land well, how explaining yourself sometimes made things worse, how confrontation didn't feel like clarity, it felt like stepping into emotional chaos with no control over the outcome. So slowly, almost invisibly, you adapted. You delayed responses. Then you shortened them. Then one day, without announcing it, you just stopped replying. And what surprised you wasn't the silence. It was the relief that came with it. But here's what nobody tells you: this isn't random behavior. There's a reason your nervous system leans toward disappearing instead of confronting. Psychologist Stephen Porges, through polyvagal theory, explains that your body constantly scans for safety or threat even in conversations. And when something feels emotionally unsafe, your system doesn't always choose to fight or argue. Sometimes it chooses to shut down and withdraw. In simple terms, ghosting isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's your body pressing an emergency exit. Because to you, confrontation doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels overwhelming, unpredictable, and risky in ways you can't always explain. And even when you try to stay, something inside you quietly pulls you away. But here's what nobody tells you: this didn't start in your adult relationships. It traces back further than that. There was a time when expressing yourself didn't lead to understanding. Maybe your feelings were dismissed. Maybe conflict in your environment escalated quickly. Maybe speaking up meant inviting tension instead of resolution. So your younger self learned something important. Silence is safer than saying the wrong thing. Distance is safer than emotional exposure. And disappearing is safer than staying in something you can't control. It's not a flaw. It's a blueprint your younger self drew to survive situations where staying present felt too heavy, too unpredictable, or too unsafe. And the truth is, that blueprint never really left you. But here's what nobody tells you: the same instinct that protects you can also cost you. Research from Harvard's study of adult development shows that long-term emotional well-being is deeply tied to stable, communicative relationships. And avoidance, especially in the form of withdrawal, can slowly erode trust, both in others and in yourself. Another study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships found that people who frequently avoid conflict often experience higher internal stress, even if they appear calm externally. Because what you avoid externally doesn't disappear internally. It lingers. Unspoken thoughts, unfinished conversations, emotional weight that never fully resolves. And sometimes, ghosting doesn't just protect you from discomfort. It also keeps you from the kind of connections you quietly wish you could maintain. But here's what nobody tells you: this trait isn't just avoidance. There's a hidden intelligence behind it. Psychologist Carl Jung once suggested that withdrawal can be a form of psychological self-preservation, an unconscious way of maintaining inner balance when something feels misaligned. And recent research on emotional regulation shows that stepping away from overwhelming situations can actually prevent escalation and protect mental clarity. In other words, when you ghost, you're not always running away. Sometimes you're choosing peace over chaos. Sometimes you're recognizing emotional signals faster than others. And sometimes you're protecting your energy in a world that constantly demands access to you. That instinct, it's not weakness. It's awareness, just unrefined, unspoken, and misunderstood. But here's what nobody tells you: the problem was never the instinct. It was the label. Society calls it ghosting, like it's something careless or cold. But that word misses what's actually happening beneath the surface. A more accurate word: selective withdrawal. You're not disappearing from everything. You're stepping back from what feels misaligned, overwhelming, or emotionally unsafe. And when you see it that way, something shifts. Because now, it's not about judging yourself, it's about understanding the pattern you've been following all along. But here's what nobody tells you: don't have to stay stuck between silence and discomfort. You don't have to choose between disappearing completely or forcing yourself into confrontations that don't feel natural. There's a middle ground, and it starts with awareness. The next time you feel that urge to pull away, pause, not to stop it, but to understand it. Ask yourself what exactly feels unsafe. Not what you should do, but what your mind is trying to protect you from. Because once you can name it, you can shape it. You can still step back, but with intention instead of disappearance. You can still protect your energy, but without losing your voice completely. And slowly, without forcing it, you start replacing silence with clarity, not for them, for you, because the truth is, there is nothing wrong with you. You adapted, you learned, you protected yourself the only way you knew how. And now, you're just becoming aware of it. That awareness, that's where everything begins to change. So the real question isn't why you ghost. It's what you'll do now that you understand it. Say it without disappearing.